Hey there. Have you ever wondered how some people can believe in weird stuff like conspiracy theories or maybe religion, depending on who you are? Or maybe if you are a religious person, you may ask how people cannot believe in God anymore, what's going on with the world? Or you may sometimes think like, I don't understand people, how they behave so in such weird ways. The reason of that is their beliefs. And you may think that you don't have many beliefs or that your beliefs are rational. But in this video we will show and I will prove to you that that's not the case. And by the end of the video I will explain you how you can eliminate your limiting belief, because chances are you have a lot of them. So that's the main idea of the video. But before that, of course, we need to explain the mechanics of belief, how they work, in order to be able to eliminate them. Alright, so before starting, let me remind you that I have a newsletter. You can check it in the description below, and you can get the text version of this video. It's not an exact one-to-one copy, but if you are short in time, you can go through it and check the step-by-step formula that I'm giving you to how to eliminate your beliefs. So now we can start. So I want to have this video since long, but I have to research a little bit because beliefs are extremely important, and you may think they're not, but trust me, they make you the way you are. You are who you are because of your beliefs about the world, about yourself, about reality. So if you don't think it's important, I don't know what you're doing with your life. But let's start with the beginning. So what are beliefs? And let me give you the dictionary definition from the Merriam-Webster dictionary. And they define beliefs as, quote, a state or habit of mind in which trust or confidence is placed in some person or thing. So, as you see, it's a pretty general definition. If you are a scientifically minded person, you may think that a belief has some religious connotation or such as dogma, but it's not. And if you are a normal person, you are holding hundreds, if not thousands, of beliefs that make you live your day-to-day life. I mean, for example, personally, a very stupid belief, I have to believe that the chair on which I'm sitting is safe enough and I won't fall and injure myself. So that's may sound stupid, but you are holding hundreds of them to survive. So it's extremely important. We need them for our survival. And I like to see beliefs as mental maps because they literally shape the way you navigate the world. And that's extremely important because the way I see this is the following. So there are people that may act in a very different way than you. If you ask yourself why these people act the way they act, and the reason of that is that their beliefs makes them a reality that's completely different to your reality. So for them it's perfectly rational and logic the way they act. And probably they're thinking the same of you. They may think, why you are so weird. So really it's all about perspectives. So for example, you may think, that's a very simple example that probably most of us hold, you may think that democracy is the best system that we have, the best political system. And let me be clear here, because I said you may think, but I think that the correct word should be you believe. And of course you may have different reasons and you can back up your argument, but deep down is a belief. if you think about it, there is no reason, like absolute reason, that says that democracy, for example, is the best political system out there. Maybe in the future we will figure out a better political system. And there are people out there that they believe that democracy is not the best system. That's why, I mean, otherwise all political systems in the world would be democracies. So that's just a simple example. But essentially, a belief is something that we hold as truth or false about the world or about ourselves. And there are so many beliefs, so I will give you here a list of just 10 examples that I came to my mind. So for example, you may believe that the earth is round or flat, hopefully not, that God exists or doesn't exist, that you are or you are not X, like you are smart, dumb, pretty, ugly, or you are not those things. That you may believe that it's good to not harm others, like the golden rule. You may believe that it's difficult or it's easy to stay in shape, or that's easy or difficult to gain muscle. You may believe that AI will make us obsolete. You may believe that the best diet is X, where X can be the vegan diet, carnivore diet, keto, paleo, omnivore, whatever. You may believe that there is or there is not life in other planets. You may believe that life is unfair. And you may believe that your beliefs are reasonable. That's a special type of belief because it's a belief about your beliefs. It's a meta belief. So I would ask you to come up with 10 of your beliefs that are not in this list, to just try to start discussion, because again, you may believe that you don't have many beliefs, but trust me, if you do this exercise you will realize that almost all of your life is based on beliefs. Because the truth is that it's pretty difficult to try everything by yourself. So let me give you an example. You may be objecting to my list saying, hey, but the air is round. This is a fact, right? And maybe the question is, have you checked by yourself that the air is round? And let me be clear, I'm not a flat earther, conspiracy theorist, but the point I want to make here is that if you haven't checked by yourself that the air is round, and there are many ways, I mean, you can do the experiments, but personally I never, like, I always believe that that's the case. I mean, I travel by plane, it's like, okay, makes sense, but I never really questioned that. And I'm not saying that the truth behind this is in question, but the fact that you assert it as a fact, that's what can be problematic, not in this example, but in other aspects of your life. And of course that trying to check every scientific fact by yourself, I mean, is impossible. I mean, we don't have the knowledge or the materials all the time, right? So in a sense we need to believe that what scientists tell us is accurate. And of course this is a belief by itself. You see? So if you believe in science, and a lot of people said, no, science is the best thing since sliced bread, and there is no other way to know about the world. That's a belief. There is nothing written in stone that says that. But if you believe that, then you will live life in a different way if you don't believe that. If you believe that science is nonsense and it's a pyramid scheme and it's a scam or conspiracy theory, then your life will be very different, right? So that's a point regarding like the scientific facts, because it's very easy to just take this on blind faith, and in a sense it's necessary because, as I mentioned, we cannot just verify everything by yourself. Even reading the paper, let's say that you read it somewhere in a paper that X is true or whatever, still this is not enough. You see, I mean, you're still believing that what they are doing here is accurate, and you are believing that the peer review process is. There are many beliefs that are hiding behind the scenes. You see, so again, I'm not telling you that you should question that. I mean, maybe you want, but the thing is that implicitly, without even knowing it, like the belief that I told you about the chair, no, or that this building is safe. I mean, we just believe it in pure faith that the system works, that when you're walking on the street, that the cars will stop in the red light and won't kill you. I mean, this is all a set of beliefs that we need to have in order to function. But there are also a lot of beliefs that can be quite problematic, and that's what I want to focus on the beliefs that you may have now that may be limiting yourself. So let me now, before telling you how to eliminate toxic beliefs from your life, this will be necessary, let me talk about some descriptions about beliefs, some important points that I think that will help you to navigate life in a better way. So the first point is that believing and knowing are not the same, and that's more or less related to what I already talked, no? That a lot of times we say, I think that is true, when the more appropriate word should be, I believe that this is true, but sometimes we use them interchangeable. So, but somehow when I think that the word "thing" is more like there is a rational process, but sometimes we just say things we exchange both words. But so there is a little difference. So as I mentioned, knowing is not what you read in a book, or what a scientist told you, or what your professors told you. Knowing is about what you could check by yourself. And for example, I mean, I'm a mathematician, and for me it would be impossible to check all the theorems that I need to cite. I mean, if you are working on a problem, you go to the literature and you say, okay, this result is published in a journal, and supposedly it's being peer reviewed, so it has to be correct, right? So we use all this on pure faith. Otherwise it would be extremely time consuming and almost impossible to just go to every single thing that we want to cite that is correct. I mean, we may check it and see if it makes sense, but we don't go through the whole paper to check that this is correct. And other times, for example, again, since mathematics needs a lot of previous background, sometimes people, sometimes people may ask me, like, do you know this result, this and this? And I may say, yeah, I know it, while the truth is that I believe that the result is true. It's like I read it somewhere, but really I didn't check. I don't know the proof, for example. That would be more of a knowing thing. In the field of mathematics, I would say that you know something is you can give a proof, but the truth is that most of the results, okay, we learn it, we check it at some point in the past, but at some point we forget about this, because otherwise it would be extremely difficult to know everything by memory. It would be quite impossible. So, but this little example can be applied to all types of beliefs that, as I mentioned, it doesn't matter if you read it on a textbook. I mean, you are believing that the textbook is right. And for example, if you ask religious people, like, why do you think what you think? They will tell you because the Bible says so. But then the question is, how do you believe that what the Bible says is true? And then they may say, because God wrote it. And then the question is, how do you know that? And there is a dead end. And then essentially it's just pure faith. So, but really you can ask this for almost any, you can go through this process to almost any sort of belief. It's easy to do that on religious beliefs because they're based on dogma. But a lot of what we think we know is also based on dogma. So be careful there. The second point is that there are many types of beliefs. As I mentioned, there are beliefs about the world, about others, about ourselves, about the past, the future, and beliefs about beliefs. Those are the meta beliefs. Like the example in the list that I mentioned, that the belief, quote, my beliefs are reasonable, which I think most of us believe that, otherwise we couldn't function. We have to believe that our beliefs are rational or are more or less sound, right? So this is a meta beliefs because it's a belief about beliefs. And those are quite tricky because those are almost invisible in a sense. And for example, if you wouldn't believe that your beliefs are reasonable, then why do you have them in the first place? But if you have these beliefs, then it can be quite difficult to change them, because if they are reasonable, then why you should change them, right? So there is a delicate line there between being open to change and being too dogmatic. And probably you have seen that there are people that are extremely close-minded, very dogmatic, very faithful to their principles or to their beliefs, while other people is way more open-minded and willing to change in presence of strong evidence. So that's depending a lot of your meta beliefs, because if you believe, for example, that your belief may be wrong, then you are way more open to change than if you believe my beliefs are the truth. So, and if you are into self-improvement, then openness to change is extremely important. That's what we're doing here, to change it ourselves. Another point I want to make is that your identity is a bunch of beliefs, ultimately. And who you think you are, your identity, is essentially a collection of beliefs about yourself, and plus your personality and your values. But your values, again, you hold your values because you believe they are good. If you value honesty, it's because you think that honesty is good, and so on. And again, I don't want to make here a moralistic discussion about what's good or what's bad. The thing is that if you have your beliefs, it's because deep down you believe they are good and necessary. Otherwise, you wouldn't have them. And that's also extremely important, because that's why we usually take things so personally. When someone attacks your beliefs or questions them, we take it so personally. I guess this happens to you in the past, that I don't know, sometimes people question, sometimes just as a joke, they make a joke about your lifestyle or what you do, and you take it super personally. Have this happened to you? The reason of that is that you feel threatened. Your mind interprets this as threat to your survival, because really it feels that way. So that's extremely important also, because again, if you are in the self-actualization journey, there are beliefs that maybe are not helping you now. For example, you may believe you're not good enough, or that you are boring, or you may have beliefs about people or about money or about society that may not be helping you in this process. So it's important to become aware of them. And the other problem is that a lot of those beliefs were acquired when we were children. And we just took them from pure faith or by social conditioning. So the question I want to make is, how genuine do you really are? And chances are you are not as authentic as you may believe you are. The next point is that beliefs are not rational. And that's also extremely important, because I was reading a book, for example, about those conspiracy theorists, and those people are extremely hard to crack. And you may show them all the facts from the world, and they will not take them seriously. And the reason is that your beliefs are not rational. As I mentioned, a lot of times we get them just because something happened in the past, just one situation. You maybe felt hurt, and you take some belief because of that, but it could be just one situation, and it cannot be generalizable. Or for example, as I mentioned, when we are children, a lot of beliefs come from our parents. And for example, I was raised Catholic because my parents were Catholic, so I was a Catholic. And I didn't question it at all until I was around 16 or 17. I started to question, wait a moment, this doesn't make too much sense. But you see, and depending on who you are, you may be more open or less open to question those beliefs. So I think that all of us still carry belief from our parents, and some of them may be good or not so good. The thing is that those beliefs are not yours in a sense. And the thing is that we usually use logic and reasoning to rationalize our beliefs after the fact, but the beliefs themselves usually are taken on faith or for emotions. Sometimes a belief may feel good, so you adopt it, but there is no like a real inquiring process about if that's really sensible, that this makes any sense. So as I mentioned, we take belief from culture, from our upbringing, social conditioning, from other people's opinion, and from emotions. And then we justify them with logic and reason. It's not that beliefs are rational, it's that we use the logic for favor to justify them. But you may even don't remember how your beliefs came to place. Another point is that beliefs can be attractive or repulsive. And what I mean by that is that some beliefs made you be more likely to believe in other stuff, while less likely to believe in other stuff. So for example, if you believe in one conspiracy theory, chances are you are more likely to believe in other conspiracy theories. And usually that's how the people get into this rabbit hole. They believe in one thing, and then they start getting into these YouTube channels or those forums, and they start believing in more and more and more, and then they get completely caught and trapped there. And that's an extreme example, but also if you are a scientist, for example, you may be more likely to believe in scientific ideas and less likely to believe in spiritual ideas, and vice versa. There are people that are more into spiritual side, and they believe everything that the spiritual teachers tells them, or pseudoscience, while their real science, they are not so adept to them, for example. You may see a lot of this in the people that, for example, don't believe in the vaccines, or that they are poison, or all this stuff. Just to give an example. Beliefs also form a sort of house of cards, and that's a very good way to see them, because beliefs really, again, form a sort of, not necessarily as a pyramid, but it's sort of a web of beliefs. And as I mentioned, beliefs feeds other beliefs. So I also like to see this analogy of a house of cards, because the beliefs at the bottom of the house of cards feed the beliefs in the upper layers. So in the bottom usually are your more fundamental beliefs, like, for example, if you believe in God or you don't believe in God, this belief can be more at the bottom, because it's a foundational one. Another belief, all your beliefs about reality, maybe what sort of physics belief you have about how the world works, those will be at the bottom of the pyramid. And that's important, because if one of them gets removed or changed, this will produce a chain reaction to the whole house of cards. Probably there will be situations in your life where you will question those ground beliefs, and this may change completely your web of belief in such a radical way. Especially if you have experienced a personal crisis, or some extremely difficult situation, like usually people that get cancer, for example, or if you lose your job or your career or a loved one. Those situations can be so devastating and traumatic that may change your whole web of beliefs in a very radical way. So that's also very important, because if you want to, it's usually more wise to go always to the bottom and try to see what are the fundamental beliefs that you are holding that may go up and change the whole thing instead of going one by one. And this is a corollary from the last point, is that personal crisis can reshape your whole way of beliefs. And personally, I mentioned in previous episodes that I experienced a very deep existential crisis not so long ago, and as a consequence I had to force myself to ask who the hell I am, and really go to the core of my beliefs, and realizing that a lot of them were nonsense. So I think that personal crisis can be an extremely fast way of growing yourself. Of course, can be scary and it's terrifying, because really your whole sense of who you are will be completely destroyed in a sense. So this is extremely dangerous for your ego. But can be such a fast way of growing yourself, and that's something that I want to talk in the future more in depth, how to use traumatic events to boost your personal growth. I think it's extremely valuable tool that nobody talks too much about this, because we always want to avoid pain and suffering, but sometimes it's inevitable, and it can make the things faster and nice and better in the long term, even though in the short term it can be extremely painful. The next point I want to make is that fear are based on other fears and beliefs, and this is just a reminder from my video about fears. You can go check it out. They explain the mechanics of fear in pretty much detail. So just to remind you, if you haven't watched this, is that fears are based on other fears and beliefs, and it forms a sort of tree, So you may start fear, and this fear will be based on some fears and beliefs. And now the fears in the second stage, those fears are also based on other fears and other beliefs, and so on. So in the end, if you repeat this process with all the fears, you will end up with a list of beliefs about yourself or about the world, whatever. And that's extremely important, because if you want to remove your fear from your life, you have to attack those beliefs that are making you scared. And I will show an example at the end how do we do that. But the important point is that if you are afraid of something, it's all an inner game stuff. And that's, I think, is very empowering, because that means that it's in your control. Sometimes we believe that things in life are pretty much outside of our control, but a lot of times we can do a lot of this, a lot to change the situation. So that's extremely crucial. Next point is about beliefs and group thinking. And that's also a very important point, because we are social creatures, and as I mentioned, we are not rational, and society as a whole is its own organism, and societies have also beliefs, in a sense, collective beliefs. And since we are social creatures, sometimes we prefer to hold our own belief rather than face the truth, in a sense, with the community. When we live in tribes, I mean, think back then, thousands of years ago, when we were in the Stone Age, whatever. And back then, the tribe was everything. Without the tribe, we couldn't survive. Isolation means death. So imagine back then that if you want to challenge the tribe, that would be extremely scary and extremely dangerous to your survival. So it would be more wise to just, ignore it and say, yeah, let's believe that shit, but it doesn't matter. But the thing is that we carry this way of thinking because it makes us survive, right? So, but I think that nowadays, this sort of way of going through life, this group thinking that you can see everywhere, is not useful anymore. So in a sense, we really need to jailbreak our genetic code, in a sense, our minds and the way we approach beliefs, because, and there are even experiments, they have done those experiments where there is a room of people and everyone says like a statement that doesn't make sense, that's false, and the person that's being experimented, most of the time they just agree with the group, but they know that's not correct, but they agree nevertheless because they feel this peer pressure. But again, if you want to grow in life, is a given that you have to go against what everyone else thinks, because if you see around you, most of the people are pretty average, right? So you need to go against the wave, in a sense, and it's extremely important to be able to analyze your beliefs from a sort of cold head way, and not be influenceable by your peers, by your family, by your country, by your religion, etc. That's extremely important. If you have this capacity, you will be so good. Your life will be so better. On the other hand, if you are very easy to succumb to peer pressure, that's very difficult to escape the matrix, in a sense. Now it's so use this phrase everywhere. But anyways, that's extremely important. But also related to this point is that sometimes a small group of people can reshape the way society thinks in a pretty short amount of time. Usually societies evolve in the following way. There is a long period of stability, and then there is a crisis or a revolution or a war or whatever, and that reshapes the whole way we believe, and then there is a long period of stability again. And an example that came to my mind is how all the LGBTQ plus movement in the last, I don't know, 50 years or so, that now is way more accepted, and the change was pretty short if you think it on the large scale of things. So that's crucial to understand how things work, because it's not otherwise you may think, oh, people are crazy, but the thing is that for most of the people it's rather safer to just think whatever else thinks. So you can use this to your favor, but also you have to be aware of that. And the last point is the relation between open-mindedness and self-improvement. And I think that's I have to remind you that if you are into self-improvement, like I hope you are, try to make your life better, then it's a must to be open-minded. And because you have to change yourself. I mean, if you that's the definition of self-improvement, is that you want to change the way you are physically, but more importantly, I think mentally. You need to jailbreak your mind and become who you want to be, and you have to be willing to and be open to change. And on the other hand, if you are open-minded, no, the opposite. If you are, the more self-improvement you do, the more open-minded you will be as a rule, because you are exposed to new ideas all the time, and that question the way you are living right now. So doing self-improvement is a great way of opening your mind. But there are also other ways, like traveling and I don't know, reading different authors and just exploring. Alright, I think that I talk a lot about beliefs and how they work. I could talk for hours about beliefs, because I think it's such an important topic that we need to become aware of. But for the sake of otherwise nobody would watch this, I want to now go to, I guess, the most important topic for you is, how do I change, or how do I eliminate my beliefs? So let's go through this. And of course there is no clear-cut way of doing that. As far as I know, there is no scientific way of removing your beliefs with 100% accuracy. So, but don't worry, I will give you my way of doing that. During the last 10 years or so, I changed so many beliefs. I mean, if I look, my old self I couldn't recognize this version. It would be completely different. And so now I will share with you a step-by-step way that you can apply right now and in the future to remove beliefs that you may think are not helping you. This will take a little bit of time, won't be automatic most of the time, so you have to be patient and go step by step and take it easy. So let's start. So let's say you want to eliminate one belief. If you want to do, well, you can start doing the exercise with me right now. If you want, you can grab a sheet of paper on your computer and just think of a belief you want to eliminate. If you don't have a belief that you want to eliminate right now, if there is nothing that comes to your mind, think of something that you are afraid of. What are you afraid of? Are you afraid of something? Maybe you are afraid of talking in public. Maybe you are afraid of failing. Maybe you are afraid of, I don't know, just think of something that you are afraid of, and I want you to come up with the reasons why you are afraid of that. If you do this, if you ask yourself this question, you will come up with a list of fears and beliefs, as I mentioned in my fear video. I really recommend you check it out, because then they're explain the mechanics of fear. But for now, just stay with me and try to come up with the reasons why you are afraid of that, and I guarantee that you will have some beliefs there. So just pick one of them. For the sake of the exercise here, let's assume that you want to drop the idea that, this may sound silly, but there are people out there that believe that women only want guys with money and success, or some variation of that, like women only like chat or stuff like that. So just for the sake of the example, I will consider this belief that, let's say, I want to eliminate. Okay, so you got the belief. Now I want to ask yourself, when did you acquire this belief? I really want you to concentrate and think when this belief started to come. You may not believe the exact moment, but try to come up with the first time you start believing that. And this may take a little bit of time to realize. You may have to go through your past, but I want you to be as precise as possible. Maybe it was a situation in your life that triggered this belief, or maybe you read it somewhere, maybe a friend told you, you read it on Reddit or on a forum. I really want to be extremely precise, and that you come up with hopefully the exact moment, or approximately the exact moment where you start believing that. Maybe you were a child and maybe difficult. Maybe your parents implant this belief on you, so you don't remember exactly, but try to come up or imagine the situation. Try to imagine the exact situation, even if you don't really have it. Try to imagine it, the exact situation. And maybe your parents told you, you were talking to your parents, or whatever. Maybe it was a combination of factors. Maybe you start watching one video and then you start watching more videos about the topic, and you got into the rabbit hole. So that's extremely important that you remember the situation, because now the next question is, why did you adopt these beliefs? And that's why it's important to try to remember the exact moment, because now I want to ask you, why did you start believing that? And here I want to be very precise. I want you to remember, if you can, the reasons back then, not the reasons that you may have now. Now you may have reasons to justify your belief, but I want you to ask yourself, why did I start believing this in the first place? Back then, maybe 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, maybe 1 year ago, maybe yesterday, I don't know. So it's extremely important that you remember the original reason, not what you may be believing now. Maybe there is some correlation, but maybe not. Probably it made sense in the past, and that's important. I think that almost all beliefs that we adopt, they made sense in the past. And maybe you were just a child, and you just believe what your parents told you, and that's a reason. Or some priest, some, I don't know, pastor, or a friend told you, or something that you trust told you this, and you just believe it because this makes sense to you, and you didn't question it. So that's also extremely important, that you come up with the original reason. And now let's go to the present moment and ask yourself, are these reasons still valid? Are those reasons still valid? The original ones. Can you find counterexamples in your own direct experience about this? And here is super important, the word in your direct experience. I don't care if you read something on the internet or a friend told you. Can you find counterexamples of those reasons in your direct experience? So, for example, we are talking about the beliefs about women only like guys with money and success. So, can you find counterexamples in your day-to-day life about this? Maybe is your mom also like that? If you have a sister, is your sister also like this? Or maybe you may have women friends. Are they only like guys with money and success or whatever? I mean, this is just an example. Can you find counterexamples in your own life? Because in a sense, what we want to do is to start to crack the shell. I mean, if you have this belief right now, you have your reasons, your original reasons. You may have now additional reasons. So I want you to come up with counterexamples if you can find. And maybe you realize right away, no, this doesn't make any sense. This happened 10 years ago, I don't know. But now it doesn't make any sense anymore. That could be a possibility. Another possibility could be that you think that your reasons are still valid. You may think that, yeah, it still makes sense that my beliefs that women only want guys with X, with money, with six packs, whatever, or your belief. So if that's the case, try to come up with examples that validate this. But again, in your direct experience. I don't want you to come up with some YouTuber told you, some red pill guy, or some internet personality, or what a friend told you, or what Reddit told you. Can you find arguments or reasons that support this belief in your experience? And here it's important that you may come with examples. I mean, you may say, you know what, yeah, I had a bad experience. I had bad experience with women in this example, and yeah, I mean, they don't like me because the way I am, whatever. You may have bad experiences, but also it's important that our beliefs usually are self-reinforcing, and it's easier to, because those beliefs shape the way we see the world. So it's easier to see examples. You may say, you know what, my brother also was screwed by a woman, whatever. And if you have this belief, it's very easy to see this everywhere. But that doesn't mean that all reality is like that. You see, that's extremely important that you become aware of that. That we tend to blind ourselves and see reality from this lens. So I'm not telling you that you should drop the belief right away, but just try to become open to the possibility that this belief may not be true necessarily. And if you have a bad experience in the past that may be supporting your belief right now, notice that this happened in the past. It's not what's happening right now. Your past is not your present. It's not your reality. And that's extremely important for people that have bad experiences. Some people may have traumatic experiences and extremely painful. You may start feeling now anger, fear, or sadness. because you were hurt in the past. So it's important that you notice those feelings. So those are the main points that I want to make. And of course, by doing this exercise, chances are you won't be able to drop your belief right away, but maybe will be the beginning. The shell will start to crack a little bit, and even if you are okay with the possibility that this belief that you have may not be truth, this is already a good first step. And I encourage you to start looking reality sometimes from the opposite point of view. Like, try to think in your day-to-day life as if you were believing the opposite, for example. That women don't care about that, about money, for example, or success, or whatever you are believing now. Can you see life from the opposite point of view and try to find examples that support the opposite belief or counterexamples to your belief? Can you look at that? This can take a couple of even months, depending on how deep your belief it is and how much is affecting your day-to-day life. So take it easy. And a last recommendation I want to make is, if you have someone that you trust and that may not have your belief, is try to have an open and not judgmental conversation with them about this topic. Again, it's important to be very not judgmental, and I know that sometimes can be difficult. So if you have a friend or a family member, you may try to, I want to have an honest conversation, but please don't judge me about what I believe is true, because again, it's very easy to do that. And I would like to listen to you. Why do you believe? What do you believe? And I want to be listened. And this is not about trying to persuade the other person, but to just to listen the other point of view and at least try to entertain the idea. I mean, if it is someone that you trust, and again, maybe it's a friend, I mean, this person cannot be bullshitting you, right? So their beliefs are also with the best intentions. So I think that can also help you to break the shell that is surrounding you. So I think that's extremely powerful. If you have the opportunity to have an honest and without judgment conversation with someone that has your opposite point of view, but not in a debate way, but just a conversation, that can be extremely useful. And that's the end of the episode. So I hope that you like it, that you enjoy it, and if that's the case, just like the video and subscribe, and remember the newsletter where I have the written version with all the details about the step-by-step process that I outlined here in the video. So if you miss one step, you can check the written version and subscribe to get access to to the newsletter and also to the video every week. So I think that this video together with the fear video are the backbone of your self-improvement journey. If you can modify your beliefs and eliminate your fears, you're invincible. It's that easy. But it's easier said than done, so it will take time and emotional work, but it's worth every second. So I hope that you can appreciate the value here, because we are talking about real personal development, not about magic tricks. It's about really going to the core of who you really are, so that you can become the architect of your life. That's all for today. See you soon.